Well, hey there. In this episode of the Intentional Mom podcast, we're going to be talking with Melissa James. This is one of our speaker guest episodes, and she is brilliant when it comes to trying to be realistic when managing our time, when managing our tasks, and trying to make what we need to do fit with the time that we have. She is absolutely brilliant when it comes to this. And I am so excited for you to hear this conversation that I had with her as part of our Simplify the Holiday online summit. So this is we're talking a lot about kind of managing your time during the holidays, but it doesn't matter if it's the holidays. These same strategies we are talking about will work anytime, especially anytime life is busy for you. So buckle up if you are in a position where life ever feels a little bit busy or hectic for you. This is going to be an episode for you. We always love hearing our guests share their wisdom and knowledge. So let's jump in with Melissa.
Rogers.
Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Simplify Your Holidays Online Summit. My name is Jennifer Roskamp, and I am your host. And today I am excited to introduce you to Melissa James. Melissa is the owner and content creator behind Our Happy Hive. For the past 6 years, she's helped thousands of women declutter, get organized, and get more done each day through her blog and products. Drawing on her 25 plus years of experience as a business leadership consultant, Melissa is here to help us gain a clear understanding of what matters most to you, making it easier for you to make decisions and live a purpose-filled life filled with intention. My favorite word. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Jennifer. I am thrilled to be here today.
Yeah, so clutter, right? Like it's a thing. And I hear about it, as do you, I'm sure, all the time in all sorts of ways. And I know it's something that in my own life I have to keep a close eye on, but it is a real pain point for a lot of people this time of year, right? But what can also happen is that in addition to the clutter that we may have in our homes, our schedules can get super cluttered. And while this is a thing, again, any time of the year, again, if we're not watching, it's really something that we feel during the holidays. So do you agree? Do you experience that like in your life, in the lives of the people that you know, and in the lives of the women that you're helping? Do you hear that it's, kind of like an acute concern this time of the year too?
I hear it for so many women, despite what season of life they're in. I know for us with young kids, I mean, all the school activities starting to happen or are happening around that time. I know for my mom and her generation, they're planning for people to come over to their house. They're planning on all the food and get-togethers and having all their chicks in one place. It's just a busy time of the year. For our family, we live in Canada, but I'm from Texas. And so there's travel to juggle. We have 3 birthdays during that time of the year. We also have 2 Thanksgivings because I'm in Canada and we're also an American family. So it's just so much to juggle. It's hard to really find a way, like how to get a grip or a rein on all of it. I remember one time my daughter's birthday is at the end of the holidays, and I was throwing her birthday party at our house, and I was like, why did I plan it this time of the year? It's just so crazy. I am not doing this next year. And then I have this realization of like, oh, I don't actually have control over when these birthdays fall. But the good news is that we do have control over other things that we can help to make this time of the year much more manageable and intentional. And so we really get the most out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I know, again, in my life personally, and then talking with other women too, it's so funny because it's like we know when the holidays are every year, but every year it's like, oh, wait, it's the holidays. And like it's a big surprise, or like it moves around or something, right? It's always the same time, same place. Yet every year it seems to hit us upside the head. I mean, please tell me it's not just me.
No, it totally sneaks up on us, doesn't it? And the truth is that time goes faster. And so you're like, oh, I still have a month, or I still have next week. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, it is next week, and I got to finish my shopping list or my cooking list. And yeah, that you're not alone in that.
Yeah, yeah. So, what do you think then are a couple of the primary reasons that our schedules tend to get cluttered over the holidays? And just throwing a couple of ideas that came to my mind out there. And I'm just curious if you would agree, or like any other additional things you might think of. But like, is it the expectations of others? Is it the expectations of ourselves? Is it just the nature of the beast of the season? Like, what do you think is are some of the primary reasons that our schedules just become so, like, sometimes if I look at my calendar and my schedule during this time of the year, like my eyes glaze over and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my balance, you know?
I think it's a combination of things. So we all have our regular activities that we're already committed to, and that doesn't stop just because it's November or December. So we're starting to layer on new additional activities to an already busy schedule because most of us love to be busy. Uh, but when you think about the additional activities, we have these ideas, these big hopes and expectations for the holiday season, and like hear something that a friend's done or see something on social media that you're like, oh, I want to do that. That's a great idea. And then you start to create these expectations and additional pressures and stress on yourself. And before you know it, you've overcommitted and you're stressed out by all the things you're trying to do for you or for your family to make it a memorable time.
Yeah, I love that point. How what you said, what really just, kind of hit me was all of a sudden you notice that you're overcommitted. It's like, and I don't get that either. It's like you can go from thinking, oh, this is okay, I can take this on, or I can schedule this or whatever. But then all of a sudden it's like you leap over like that tipping point where it's like it's fine. And then all of a sudden it's not fine. And I don't even know how that happens either.
I think it's what we were talking about earlier. The time creeps up on us. It moves faster. We had one more commitment this week or something unexpected that we didn't plan for this week, and you have no margin to accommodate that extra thing that snuck up on us. And so then all the things we had planned get pushed back and down the pipe. And it's just before you know it, you're stressed by what you need to do and what you want to do.
Yeah, you're really right in that. Whereas if we are if we are tightly packed into our schedules as is, and then there's those wrenches that come in, right? Those unexpected things. And just like you say, if there's no margin, that's where it becomes just blown up, where it's like, okay, what happens now? What do we do now? Right. So, but it is hard though, right? Because often we want to do all of the holiday have to things, right? But in a lot of cases, I'm sure that if we were to take a step back, perhaps even before we started, and just ask ourselves, is this even realistic? We might even come to the conclusion that, wait, even from the get-go, I think I'm overdoing here. And so, if we then are in a position where we realize we're just not going to have the time, the bandwidth, or something else to do it all, where do we start? Is there a place that you can guide us that we can start from in determining what to say yes to and what to say no to? Is there some guidance you can give us with that?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I love to do before every season or before a new year is to think about what is my vision? How do I be more intentional with my time? What is it that I want out of this? I know that we can get so busy for me that we're always from the space of reacting and trying to get things done and trying to cross things off our list. But if we step back and say, and speaking specifically about the holidays, what do I want this holiday season to look like? What do I want to feel like in the midst of it and also after it? What are the experiences after? Yeah, after it, right? Like not just in the moment, but also like I don't want to get to the end of the season and be like, man, this was so stressful. But like I said, for my daughter's birthday party, I'm never doing it around this time of the year again. So I think having that vision, and you can do some things to cultivate that vision. If you're not someone who's necessarily reflective, you can look up like journal writing prompts to say like some of these questions I'm throwing out there. What is it that I want this to look like? What do I want to feel like? What do I want my family to experience or remember? And backing up even if you myself is like, what are my priorities during this season? There are those typical things that come to mind, like family and get-togethers and having our traditions. But there are other ways too, like maybe staying within my budget or not blowing all of my calories every single day, or exercising. Like there are both the festive things, but also the light things that some of the time when January comes, we're like, whoa, I did not mean to go that far in debt, or I did not mean to gain 10 pounds, whatever the case is. So thinking about like what are your top 2 to 3 priorities can really help you focus. And you can use it to kind of as criteria to decide like what you want to do over the holiday season.
Yeah, and what I love about that idea, that's so smart. What I love about it too is that we are perfectly positioned right now, right? Like September, October, like we
Yeah.
are right now, we have the time and space to actually put some thought into that, right? And like you mentioned, I don't know if it was right before this or maybe just a smidge earlier where you were talking about reactive, right? Like we have the time right now where we don't have to just reactively respond, but we can proactively come up with the, more heartfelt and maybe more well thought out answers to those questions that we otherwise might not even have the opportunity to even entertain. It's like, well, no, I can't even think about that right now. All I can do is try to jump in and stay above water.
Completely. Like that is so often we wait until, we hear Black Friday's coming or Thanksgiving's coming in. And it's like, oh, I have to do all of this right now, but we don't have time, the lead time, the runway time to think and plan. But here in the early fall, we can sit down and like we're not under that stress. We're not under the hustle and bustle. We can think through, do you know, like last year, reflecting on last year, what was last season like? And was it good? Or what did I like about it or not like about it? And what do I want to recreate or preserve this year? This is a good time. I agree with you. This is the prime time if you're able to carve out because it doesn't have to be a lot. 15, 30 minutes, here and there to think through what your vision and priorities are.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a great tip too. When someone might initially be thinking, like they might hear you ask the question, like, what do you want it to look like? And their answer might be like, I have no idea. I don't even know how to answer that question. But like you say, thinking back to last year and maybe asking yourself, like, if you're like, I have no idea what that would even look like, how to do it, it taxes my brain to even think about to come up with an answer. Maybe the easiest way to get started then is to reflect on what you can remember, maybe even going through I guess what pops into my head at this minute is maybe going through pictures from last year, because sometimes it can be, there's a lot of life that happens in 365 days.
Right.
So, to go look at pictures and try to draw some of that out. Like what did I appreciate? What did my family appreciate? What did work well last year? And what of that sort of stuff would I want to repeat? And what would that look like? That's a great idea, that reflection piece. That did not even occur to me, but that can be so helpful. And so thank you for that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Just piggyback on that really quickly.
Yeah.
With time comes greater clarity. And so also not only just looking back one year, but thinking about like your childhood, what are the things that stood out to you about the memories? It's probably not all the busyness. There are probably a few key memories that you hold on to. And so whether you're thinking about were your friends or family or kids or whatever, if you can boil it down for those things that really stand the test of time, then I think you can also be able to help you retire out some of the noise, right? The extra things that we try and throw in that aren't really necessary in order to have that peaceful little holiday that you're hoping for.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And then if I think about like some of my older kids who are now in their early 20s, when they were little, if you would have asked me what they would recall as meaningful, from their younger years at Christmas time, like it's not what they say now, right? Like it's not all of the things. Just like you say, it's not all of the things and all of the hustle and bustle. It's those little moments that often are the most meaningful. But to keep our schedules from getting too overcrowded, we are going to have to say no to some things, right? And I would love to know if you've got some tips about that. So like how to say no, and in reality, we're not even just saying no to others. At times we're saying no to ourselves, right? Like we're going to have to be like our own boss and be like, no, you cannot do that. Even though, it might be valuable, it might be wonderful and all the things, perhaps under a different set of circumstances. But for right now, the answer has to be a no. So, do you have any tips on how to say no, maybe to ourselves? And then maybe also how to say no to other people and maybe not offend them? Or do we even need to worry about offending people? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so saying no is so important. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Saying no to yourself is so important. Some of the times we have these expectations of ourselves that like, oh, we have to wrap everything and have to have a beautiful bow on it. Well, could you do paper bags this year? Like putting paper bags in the dollar store, but I need something easier. Or maybe you're not going to cook all the things. When you go to a party this year, your work party, what if you buy the salsa instead of making the salsa? There's some things that you can do to simplify your commitments. Again, another thing you can say no to is even your mindsets. So, are you going to compare yourself to your neighbor or your best friend or to someone else's holiday experience? Are you going to say no to complaining? How can you practice an attitude of gratitude? Those types of things help you to kind of get in the right place. And then I think saying once you can say no to yourself, it makes it easier also to say no to others. And so, no, it isn't always like, nope, I'm not going to do that. But it could be like, you know what, this year I already have a lot of commitments and we're really focusing on some priorities and I'd love to get together with you, but it's going to be in January, unfortunately. Or, you can soften the approach. I don't think you have to totally worry about someone else's opinion, but obviously you value the relationship and their friendship, and some of the times you just have to be clear. But we have some priorities this year that we're really trying to stick with, and I would really love to get together with you, but it's going to probably be in January.
Yeah. Well, and in reality, what we don't want is we don't want to say yes and then have there be resentment after that. That's that sneaky,
Yeah.
right? That we often don't think about it, and we feel obligated and maybe even like grudgingly are like, yes, but the resentment then comes in. And so then what has that done for you? What has that done for them? How much better would like you use the word soften. I loved that word, like a soft no. How much better would that have been than to have this resentment between, even if not visible to them, just like for you, where you carry that and that's like a frustration and that affects things going forward. So many things to consider. Saying yes or no on the outside, or right at first glance might seem like it should be easy, but there really is a lot to entertain.
Yeah, and I think, it can be easier to say no to friends, but harder to say no to family. They have expectations, you have traditions, they value you and want to see you. So recognizing that the heart is right is a good place to do it. But then how do you balance that? Is there some type of compromise? Like maybe they're asking you to come over for a full day and you just don't have a full day. So it's, well, why don't we just do dinner? Is there a middle ground where you can say no to maybe the larger commitment, but help meet them halfway so that you're preserving the relationship, showing that you value them, but not overcommitting. And then, like you said, being in a place of regret afterwards and frustration and, all the attitudes come in for you and your family and you're managing that for maybe days to come.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I loved how you brought up January because I know, speaking of compromise, I know for us, one year, there was one particular family expectation where it was like, we can give you, because of the way that things are right now, we can give you 2 hours on this day. But if you wanted to push it to January, we could do like the whole day. Like we could do this and this and this. And it literally just giving them the option and saying, you know, which would you prefer, and really just kind of having that conversation and just,
Yeah.
that worked really well. It was like, you know, I think it gave them a different perspective to be like, we're doing everything we can right now. And this is what we can do now, but we can do more later. I think it made it feel more like it wasn't that we were devaluing,
Right.
but it was more so realistically, it wasn't placed on value, I think, as much as maybe it would have been otherwise.
Right. Yeah, it's not bandwidth. I mean, we all have 24 hours in a day and 7 days a week, and there's only so much you can do. And so yeah, I think conveying the challenge and the struggle and just being transparent with, like, I would love to get together, Mitch and I, but right now, we just can't do that. And people value that authenticity and sincerity.
Yeah, I agree on that too, for sure. So we've got all these holiday things, right? Like that's kind of in one bucket that we're dealing with right now. But then we've also got all of the regular things, right, that we've got to do during the holidays. And I know you kind of mentioned that early on. So how do we fit in all of the regular things in the midst of all those holiday things? So do you suggest that we downsize some of those regular things during the holidays? How do we make room for all of that? And where do we start?
Yeah, so there's two types of commitments that we have. Some that are flexible and some that are hardwired. But for my daughter, like her sport doesn't stop over get back to ramping up in November and December. That's not something I can just pause. But there are other commitments, maybe like the bus club that I'm in, or something I'm doing more extracurricular that I can pull back on and say I'm going to pause for a couple of months. And then I think there are ways that we can save time. So it's not necessarily cutting things out of our schedule, but it is making things be more productive with the smaller amount of time that we have. So, maybe you use what they call a meal planning service or a meal service where they deliver the food. You don't have to go to the groceries, or maybe it's you do online grocery shopping instead of going to the store and spending an hour and a half there. Another thing you can do is try and again this planning ahead. Like we talked about being in the sweet spot of the fall here. Start make double batching some recipes. If you don't have this incredible lunch, start double batching some recipes that you can squeeze, and then you can pull them out. At the busy time of the year, and that way you're not having to cook as much. Other options would be, is there an opportunity to get additional help? Like could you have someone come and help you clean the house one day instead of you having to spend the amount of time cleaning the house? So I think there's one of those things you can take off of your schedule. They're one of the things you can do faster in a condensed way, and maybe not with all the bells and whistles that you would normally do. And then there's what extra help can you get during those times? And all of those pieces working together can actually help you stay kind and prioritize how you're spending it at or holidays.
Yeah, and I love that tip too, where you're talking about like for a lot of people, like having someone come in and help clean your house and stuff like that would not be in the budget year round. But the question then becomes, could it be in the budget just for this short season? You mentioned like meal planning services and stuff like, there is something to be said for, can we work that into the budget just to help alleviate some of that? And maybe that's something that you haven't ever really, that some of us haven't ever really thought of before is, yes, that has to be a no normally, but how much would it really cost and what really would be possible, even just to have like with older girls, when we used to live in a neighborhood, during the holiday times, there were a couple of different moms in the neighborhood who lived nearby who would have my daughters come into their house during that time of the year to just like help entertain and watch their kids so that they could do the things like the gift wrapping and do the things like maybe it was like baking or whatever it was, like they
Yep.
didn't need that year round, but during that time, it was so helpful. And I know there are places, I know that I've seen it like in my neighborhood group that I'm part of. And what a cool business idea, like to offer gift wrapping services. Like I would be, I mean, I have kids, so I do kind of have gift wrap services in my house.
But
If I did not, like that is something I used to enjoy gift wrapping and making it all pretty and all of those things. But I think I've just surpassed that time in my life where because I'm so constrained on time that I would be so I don't know that I would enjoy that activity right now in this season of my life. So if there was someplace I could drop my packages off, like, in my area to have somebody wrap those off for me, like I would do that in a heartbeat,
yeah,
you
that's
know? And
yeah.
yeah, like not going all out. Maybe sometimes that works, but maybe this year it's not gonna,
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point about like leveraging those that are around you. So you mentioned you have kids and you can all source to them. I've been talking a lot about the what do I do, what do we do the as women. And if you have kids and you have a partner, like delegate and get them involved and don't own it all yourself. Make sure you are tapping into all of those resources that are there. And then the other thought that came to mind as you were talking was if you don't have a budget to get additional help, you can just have friends you can kind of swap with. Like, do you see here my business happening while I go grocery shopping or Christmas shopping, holiday shopping, and I'll take care of yours next week. And then you kind of help balance each other out and create your own support team, so to speak, Karenasi.
Yeah, and maybe even swapping gift for gift, like in terms of, I don't want to wrap your presents, but I'll take your kids. If you wrap
Right.
my you wrap my presents and just give me your kids, I would, that to me, like that's a fair swap. So if that's a fair swap to someone else too, right? Like, yeah, you're so right. And something else that I often forget about that I just tapped into recently again too is when you're talking about delegation and you're kind of bringing that up. Something that I often forget, like I might think, can my husband help me sort out these gifts, right? Because we shop year round and I do my best for presents and stuff. And I do my best to keep an inventory sheet. But you know what? It's not always perfect, right? Especially when someone says, "Oh, I got invited to this party, I need a gift." Okay, let me just look and pull something out, and it's
Right.
not a perfect system without flaws. But I was thinking, can my husband help me sort any of these gifts out? And I'm thinking, no, he doesn't know what's here. But then I thought, you know what? But what he can do is I can give him all the boxes and I can say, I need you to sort these between girl gifts and boy gifts and things that you think would be appropriate for younger girls and older girls. That's it. So there was 4 different categories. So he couldn't
Yep.
take it any further from there. But that did save me time, right? So it's not even delegating the whole activity. Sometimes it's scrounging around and finding the tape, finding the scissors, bring me all the holiday gift wrapping supplies. Even if someone can just buy you 10 minutes, right? If it's 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there.
I get that agree. Like so often we have this all or nothing mentality. Like I have to get rid of all a delegate or a fine or do this entire thing. Even like hosting people at your house, meals to get together the holidays. A lot of times it wouldn't be in the budget to like maybe cater a whole meal, but you could get the dessert taken care of, and then you only have to do the entree, or you can have someone bring a salad, or there's different ways to divvy it up, so you're not carrying all the burden. So whether it's meal planning and get-togethers or gift wrapping, there's so many ways that we can just kind of break these things that feel really big down and have other people help carry the load.
Yeah. Well, even for those regular things during the holidays, right? So maybe you can't afford to eat out everything, but maybe you could stop by, the deli counter and grab just the side dishes, or maybe you could grab just the rotisserie chicken and you do the side dishes. Like you're so right. It's that we do tend to, our brains, I think, are just wired for that all or nothing. Like, no, I can't afford to eat out, but wait a minute, could you afford just this small piece of it and how much that would alleviate?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, again, kind of going towards our expectations. Like one of the things I often feel like a dinner, I need to cook a dinner, or it needs to be, like not a normal dinner, but a more like an entree. And then I find, especially in the part of the year that they're really busy, is that I don't want to cook necessarily on the weekends and things. So you're giving yourself permission to do sandwiches one night instead of, cooking something that takes half an hour or an hour. What are the ways that you can, minimize your own expectations and just kind of take it down a level so that you can have some of that time back and less stress?
Yeah. And have you ever said to your kids, it's cereal for dinner? And what do your kids do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
oh my gosh, is this all it takes for me to be a rock star?
right?
I'm always like, duh, right? Because we stress about it, but they're like, yes, it's so funny. Isn't that funny how our brains see things and sometimes we just need to get over ourselves, right? In the way that we see it. Because it's like, you know what? Just get over yourself. Just I need to tell myself that. I need that probably on a post-it note, like 1,000 places in my house. And that could apply in so many ways. Just get over yourself. Like, it would be like, oh, yes, that's right. I do need to do that. So, Oh, so fun. So, one thing I do ask everyone as we're bringing this to an end is just what is one quick like take action now tip so that someone who's been listening with us and they're like, "Oh my gosh, so many great ideas. Where do I start?" Like where do you think a good starting point could be to help alleviate a little bit of the burden that maybe starting to creep in a little bit of the, "Oh my gosh, how do I do this again?" kind of a thing.
I think what we talked about at the very beginning of just reflecting on the last year holidays, or even your childhood holidays, and writing down like what were the things that were meaningful to you, and just getting that ball rolling of thinking about like what do I intentionally want to create for this holiday season. You can even, if you have a smartphone, start looking through those pictures. It doesn't have to be an involved process, but 15-30 minutes just to start thinking about while you have the time to think about what experience you want to have for you and your family is that would be my number one thing to start right now because it's the prime time to do that.
Yeah. And I see that as such a calm, anchoring place to start. Like, I would be like, oh, all right. Like, I understand where we're going now, which makes it easier to figure out how to get there, right?
Yeah, and let to say yes to and let to say no to it. It serves this criteria for you and the filter as you start to plan your holidays.
Yeah. So great. Such a great tip. So thank you so much today, Melissa.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks so much for joining us. Well, thank you so much to Melissa. Isn't she amazing? Make sure that you check her out at our Happy Hive. And it's always a good time when I talk with Melissa. She and I are friends in real life, and it's always just a great conversation. She has such great wisdom, and it's practical and down to earth. That's one of the things I love about Melissa. So I'm excited to tell you about the next episode because if you don't already know this about me, I'm kind of a rebel. I'm someone who really doesn't like to follow rules. If someone tries to give me a rule to follow, a lot of times I'm assessing it. And if I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense, I will probably give some pushback on that. So, in the next episode, I'm going to be taking something that is often talked about one way, and I'm saying, no, no, let's change that conversation. I'm going to be a rebel with what you're saying, and I'm going to tell you why it can be 180 degrees the other way. Curious? You are going to want to make sure you tune in for that episode. We'll talk then.